We're broadcasting from the Middle Tennessee Electric Studios.
Visit mte.com.
Middle Tennessee Electric, serving to make life better since 1936.
This is a WGNS Action Line. Talking with Rutherford County newsmakers
since 1947.
This is a WGNS Action Line. Now, your host, Scott Walker.
This morning we have guests in studio from the Murfreesboro Police Department, Chief Michael Bowen and Captain Clayton Williams today, and a lot happening within the police department, including a new police precinct on the horizon.
That and just a lot of stuff. It's budget time, so that's always a busy time of the year. We spend a lot of time in the early months of the year working on our budgets, getting things planned out, looking at goals and objectives, things like that. You did mention the precinct, so that did go to council. The plan and design of a potential police precinct on the west side of town. So that's good stuff. I know that just from conversations I've been involved with, and I know just hearing council and city administration talk, even though we're planning now, realistically, that's more of a FY30, FY31 type project. So we're just kind of get ahead, get the planning, getting that part done. There's just so much growth when you look at police stations, MFRDs having to add stations, to meet the growing city. So there's a lot going on, a lot of good stuff, but it's definitely busy.
And I saw the architectural firm Klein Sweeney, Bart Klein.
Yes.
If I recall, it was maybe his father who helped to design, I think, the original police station built next door in 73 or so.
I believe that's the case because when I met him, interesting enough that when we left the facility here next door on South Church Street, we were cleaning out closets and stuff like that, and we found the original drawing for that South Church facility, and I believe I showed it to him because of that connection. I've shown it to a lot of people, but yeah, it's pretty interesting to see the original drawing of that headquarters on South Church Street.
It's always cool, though, when you're able to connect some history with something new you're putting together, building. I mean, no matter what it is you're building, be it a city office or a private business, it's just kind of cool. It is.
And I just look back on time, and 8 years now that we've been moved out of that facility. It's just time gets by so fast.
Time flies. Because it seems like just yesterday you guys were next door.
Exactly.
But 2018, I guess, is when you officially moved.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. And I still remember the original MMC that was at that location. A lot of people don't even realize that because we have so many new folks in town.
Oh, yeah. Raising kids took a lot of runny noses in there, and that was one of the main places at that time.
Yeah, and it was a huge office for Murfreesboro back then because our population was a whole lot smaller.
Yeah.
Even into the 90s, I think the population of Murfreesboro was around 49,000 or so.
Yeah.
And today, probably over 180,000.
Roughly, yeah.
It's grown a lot. Big changes from the days of Dr. Shacklet and those offices on Clark Street, yeah.
And they called him One-Shot Shacklet.
Yeah. I've heard that. You're not the only person I've ever heard that from.
Because usually one shot would cure whatever was going on, it seemed like, I guess. Murfreesboro has grown like crazy.
It has.
But with that growth, it seems like everything has been kept up with as far as keeping crime down and all of that stuff. I mean, when you look at per capita numbers, it seems like crime is maybe even less today than what it was even 15 years ago.
We're in a real good position in a lot of ways. And I know I'm redundant, but when we talk about crime numbers, we know that, hey, when we do have instances of crimes, that there's people connected and that we never want to diminish people who are victims of crimes to just being a number. So I just want to put that out there. But when you do look at things statistically, past couple of years have shown some downward trends. I know we had a couple categories move up last year, but when you looked at the raw numbers, they weren't anything that were alarming. Sometimes those numbers ebb and flow. But we have to look at it long term, but the short term, what we're seeing short term is encouraging.
I'm always surprised when you hear about cases that are moving forward that involve the FBI, the TBI. I mean, not just in Rutherford County, all over the state, though. I'm always surprised to hear about these cases when arrests are made, because sometimes you hear the news and it's like, I never would have imagined that happening, you know. The FBI, TBI, I mean, they do have a hand in a lot of cases out there.
They do, and a lot of times it's just attributed to local law enforcement agencies. But having those partnerships and having the ability to reach out to other agencies, especially when you start crossing jurisdictional lines, that's really beneficial. And fortunately, we have a lot of good relationships with most of our federal agencies, state agencies. TBI has always been a solid partner for us, so that pays off.
And I guess with the FBI, they only have one office in the state of Tennessee, right? I guess that's the Nashville office.
They have one in each division.
Yeah.
Do they? Okay.
Yeah.
East,
One West Tennessee as well?
Yeah.
I guess I just never even thought that much about it until there's some recent story that I think it was out of Wilson County, and I started thinking, well, I only know of one FBI, and that was the one in Nashville. But yeah, it makes sense that they'd have more than one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Man, I keep getting spam. I don't know if y'all have seen an increase in spam calls, but I don't know
It's constant.
what's happened.
Constant.
Yeah, just no, I don't have Medicare Part A or Part B. That's the one I'm getting all the time, constantly, several times a day.
That or home loans and what was the other one? I don't. Seems like loans are, and it's always like a fake person, you know, like a not pre-recorded AI voice these days.
Yeah.
My favorite one, I'm getting texts on my work phone about how
Text. I get a lot of those
it
too.
says that they really like my headshots and I've got a future in modeling, and I know it's false. I'm like, what is wrong with you people? I'm like,
that can be real. You got to respond.
they might get some people on that hook, but they fished in the wrong pond on that.
All right,
That's
moving
hilarious.
on.
So what else is happening here locally? What's the newest, the latest thing going on, or crime to hit people, or potential crime? Because speaking of spam calls, it seems like people still get these. I don't know what you call them. The fraudulent calls where somebody's trying to say that you missed court or you've got a fine to pay.
Yeah. Those are always unfortunate. I've had people call me after hours saying, "Hey, I've been asked to do this or that," and my response is always, "Hang up, call the agency that they're claiming to be a representative of, and call them." The biggest one seems to be from people claiming to be from the sheriff's department about unpaid warrants, things like that. Say, "Hey, I appreciate it. Can I have your name?" Hang up, call the sheriff's department, say, "I've been contacted," and they'll be able to talk you through it. But I can guarantee you most of the time that those calls are false. And especially when they're asking for that money up front, I guarantee that they're not legitimate calls, and there's no harm in hanging up with that caller, calling the sheriff's department, whatever agency they claim to be a representative of, and working directly with them. That way you're dealing directly with that agency.
The ones that I would guess have the most victims attached to them would be those where somebody's calling, claiming to be with some loan office, some bank, and it's a real person, and they sound knowledgeable, and they're saying to you, you've been approved for a loan of whatever the amount is, and then they start asking more personal questions about where you bank and stuff like that. I could see where that would get a lot of people off guard, and especially if they call the right person who just happens to be struggling at the right time, they think they got approved for a loan. I could see them going along with it, giving them personal information.
Yeah. I had a call from a financial that I do business with, and they said that they were noticing some unusual activity, and they were like, "Hey, can we confirm some information with you?" And it's like, "Hey, let me call you back on the number that I know's associated with your business, and then we can go from there." And that's what I did, because when they start confirming information and wanting you to say, "Well, tell me this number so I can confirm it," well, no.
And they usually pick larger banks because I guess there's a better opportunity that, hey, you may bank with this place, because I would get text messages and calls saying, we're with Bank of America and this is and I'm like, I don't have an account at Bank of America.
Yeah, what's scary though is when we look at AI and a lot of the things that are trending towards AI, I'm just fearful of what's on the horizon as far as fraud and scams. It's just I don't know where it's going to lead, and it's pretty concerning just not knowing. So protect yourself, protect your information. I know that they have a lot of these monitoring services, and you can go online and do reviews and Google, see which ones are best, and just, it's probably something that's not a bad move for some people. You just have to look at your own situations, but really protect your information. And if you can monitor it through some type of monitoring service, maybe that's something beneficial.
I know my first move is always to Google the phone number that's calling, just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
I still hang up because I know I haven't applied for any loans or anything like that, but I always like to Google the number to see what comes back to it. But sometimes it's the actual number of whatever they claim to be with because they're spoofing numbers.
Yeah. And just checking your credit reports from time to time, you have the ability to do that. It's just, why not? Why not? Just see if there's any unusual activity on there.
For sure. So have there been any recent crimes that have been reported that, you're working to find who the suspect is and the public's help's needed in some form or fashion?
Well, there's always something that we're working on. And anytime you think you know about a crime, definitely call us or call Crime Stoppers and share that information with us. I know that one of our lieutenants, Lieutenant Travis Ledford, worked very hard on putting a lot of our cold case homicides online. So those are always big for us. And you can go to our website and you can click on those and you can read each of the individual cases and kind of see the facts and circumstances behind those. So those are always huge and definitely priorities for us in trying to solve. I know we had some recent success with that. We did have a couple burglaries to business, gun stores. One was a pawn shop, and I'll have to. It's fairly recent, so I'm not going to be able to get a whole lot of details. But I can tell you, the most recent one, the Real Time Crime Center, really played a huge role in helping solve one and get leads on the other. And those were two huge cases. In our mind, anytime you start wrecking cars into buildings and stealing firearms, that's huge. And our crime center stepped up once again and gave us some good information, and we were able to chase down some leads. So real positive. And I know people probably get tired of hearing about that crime center. I know there's some individuals who have concerns about privacy, and I get that. But just know that system is paying dividends, and we really are strict about how we use that information. We're strict about who has access to it, and it's making a difference in how we investigate and solve crimes.
Yeah, and I'll add on that too. You mentioned about public information help. We try to be very diligent about, and I would encourage anybody, if they're listening, to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, if you're not out there looking at websites a lot. But our PO, Larry Flowers, he's very good about when we have bulletins where we're looking for a person of interest, whether it be missing person or somebody wanted in a crime. If we can get that kind of information where maybe we have a photo from a store or something, that'll be out there. And we always appreciate the human factor of leads, because there's so many people out and about when sometimes these things are happening. Somebody may have seen something and we don't realize it. So we always welcome that feedback. So please follow us on those social media pages for any of that information, and we're glad to take any help we can get.
And sometimes I would assume the smallest of details can help actually solve whatever whatever that crime was.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Don't ever think that the information you have is so insignificant that it's not useful. Anything, and a lot of these crimes can help. It may seem something that's minute, but it could pay off in the investigation.
In TV shows and in movies, because crime and police are exactly like what we see in the movies and on TV, of course. But you always hear about those cases where somebody was arrested and they tell another inmate about what they're in there for, and they tend to elaborate on whatever it is they're in there for. And then you later find out, this person is now a witness speaking before a court because of what they told that cellmate. Does that really happen in real life locally? I mean, do you see that on occasion?
I'll just say this without saying it doesn't it doesn't exactly play out that exact way. However, there is information that comes once people are arrested that sometimes becomes vital, especially in some of the very large, I would guess I would say more heinous crimes, especially your homicides and things like that. That comes to that where it helps.
Can I point to a local crime?
Yeah.
There's probably some, but I can't point to it. But I know that I've seen some national news stories where that has happened, and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And of course, all the phone calls that are made from the jail, those are all recorded. In fact, I think it even says, you're on a recorded line, or it's got it written somewhere where the inmate sees it, but yet they'll still move forward and talk about whatever it is right there on the phone.
Yeah. I don't know, there's this, or I'm trying to choose my words carefully, with social media, telephones, whatever it may be, there's this urge for people to talk about the things they've done, and it's just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
I think social media has kind of opened that gate to where people feel a lot more comfortable than they should talking about literally anything and everything.
Isn't that the truth?
And it's wild. And you see it in comments online. I mean, you see it everywhere. People just, I don't know what the deal is, but they go crazy online with typing stuff out.
Yeah.
That's why I stay off of it.
It's probably the best bet, the best thing to do. Anyway.
We could spend the whole show. Yeah.
Now, going back to the gun store burglaries, I know that gun stores of course, the one in Murfreesboro, Bullseye, that's been hit before with people driving a vehicle into the building. Of course, the most recent on Thompson Lane. And then also Chapel Hill, Smyrna, Nashville, they've all been hit. The gun stores have been hit by people literally driving stolen cars into the side of the building. And then once they do that, they run in, grab whatever guns are available, and leave. And it happens pretty quick.
It does. It's they do pre-planning. They take a lot of steps to try to get by with their crime. Fortunately, like I said, on this most recent one, I think that we had some people that were pretty good at what they do, going back to our crime center, and they were able to plug some things together, and they were able to get us some good leads, and hopefully that'll be the trend moving forward. Hopefully that we'll see more cases like that are being solved, because several years ago, I mean, this would have been it wouldn't have been possible to solve some of these issues, crimes, and you can't always say 100% sure, but man, I know that there are some certain crimes that we have solved using that crime center that would have been unsolved. There's no doubt in my mind, and so if we can get that investigative information out, collect it soon, and be able to follow up on those leads, the quicker the better, and it typically leads to results. I know that this year, looking at our statistics for the crime center last year compared to this year, I know they said the first quarter of this year we've already exceeded what we accomplished with the crime center all of last year. So that's, and a lot of it is we've expanded staff, we've expanded the hours of that center, but it's paying off in a lot of ways that are positive. And I know I'll always go back to, I know that there are individuals that have privacy concerns, but just know that I think the way that we run our center, that we're cognizant of the fact that people have privacy concerns, and we do our best to minimize who has access to that information.
Hey, I know some police departments are part of different pilot programs. I know one of those programs here in Murfreesboro with the DNA and everything, but I noticed a story out of Nashville recently where it was a domestic violence related story, and Nashville police said that they had a drone over the scene of where the domestic violence was taking place before police actually arrived to that scene. And they were able to deploy the drone from the police precinct to the crime scene where that domestic violence was unfolding. And they were talking about how that was part of a pilot program Nashville's doing with drones. Is that something we're going to have here, where we can send a drone to the crime scene before police arrive?
Yeah, don't quote me on this. I think Mount Juliet's doing it.
I've seen something about Mount Juliet too. Yeah.
I think Mount Juliet, Nashville, And Mount Juliet does a good job with their technology, running their technology, things like that. I know that the other day they were having a meeting at our department where they were demoing that technology, and it's pretty interesting how you can launch that thing and how it will respond to the scene before the police even get there and start recording footage. So is that something that we have in our budget? No. Is it something that potentially we'd be looking for down the road? Absolutely. You always have to know, there's a cost associated with everything, so you kind of have to look at the numbers and see how it fits into your budget and how it fits into your priorities. But it is definitely something that it's on the horizon. I think you'll see a lot of it a few years from now, and I think that it's something that we're willing to look at and embrace if it proves beneficial.
And I'm guessing if that drone is overhead recording and it gets there before police do, the people who are on the ground committing whatever crime it is, they probably aren't going to hear the drone. They're not going to look up to realize they're being recorded. But man, what great footage for court.
Yeah. And definitely the real practical application, because those things have limited range. Yes. And so I'd like to see, how it really works. I know how it works in theory, but I'd like to see how it really works when it's applied in the field.
Yeah, I think that's even talking, like we have drones now but they're human operated, that for very specific reasons, not to that degree. It's response for looking for something, and there's just like all technology, it'll evolve. But I know one of the big limitations, like you said, it's the flight time. Those things run on batteries, and I was talking to one of the guys the other day, and my mind's kind of simple in this form, and I said, why can't you just put a bigger battery on it? And he said, well, it weigh too much. Then you can't do that, because then it increases the payload, and so it's all those things work together, kind of how. So it's neat, but it'll be a great tool in the future to look at. And like I said, we're fortunate to have places like Metro and Mount Juliet and doing some of the field work and helping us learn as we go. So we want to make sure and just kind of pay attention to that.
And the pilot program here in Murfreesboro that you guys are working, I guess, with to collect data involves DNA and being able to actually test DNA, what I guess you would say in real time from the scene of the crime, right?
Yes.
Go. No, you go.
No, you go.
No.
Oh,
I yield back.
Who wants to go first?
I yield back.
So the big thing is, this part of the grant program, we were TBI Director Roush reached out, and there's a couple of agencies participating in this study, and it's basically when we go to burglary scenes, utilizing DNA. It's called rapid DNA kits that we are using in burglary investigations to see how those affect the outcomes. And then I think once this study is over, if it's successful, then we could potentially use that for other crimes as well. I know we're focused on a certain set of crimes, but it's expensive. It's like anything, it's very expensive, and it's one of the things where you have to prioritize how you use that technology. But long term, it's like any technology. It's like flat screen TVs. Over time, those costs will come down and it'll become more manageable. So we're in the early stages on that. It's a good program to be a part of. I think we're in a good position to be asked to be one of those agencies to participate, and I'm just really looking forward to the results, because I think they're going to be positive, and I think they're going to be game changing for us.
I remember as a teenager, I had my truck broken into, and I noticed there was like a little sliver, there's some blood on a sliver of glass, I guess, whenever they broke into my truck window. And at the time I was probably 16, 17 years old, and heard of DNA, knew what DNA was in the 90s, of course, but I thought to myself, oh, they'll be able to solve this crime right away. And of course it's a little more difficult than that. And back then, the thought of recovering DNA for a stolen stereo out of a pickup truck was really the last thing on the minds of anybody.
Yeah.
Now we've tried to recover DNA from certain items, but like I said, the costs, have to be real choosy about how we do that. And definitely when it comes to violent crimes or homicides or other violent crimes, we definitely are willing to make that type of investment to see if it can produce a lead. But it's just amazing. I saw the national case recently where off a gun case and DNA was recovered, and they were able to pick up a lead on that. So it's yeah. If you ever told me that we would be in this position 10 years ago nationally with some of the things that are being done in law enforcement, I would never believed you.
You know, I'm excited as a citizen to know that a lot of these smaller cases, burglaries, break-ins, they've got the potential of being solved pretty quickly with the use of DNA. I mean, I never would have imagined that, but that's got to make people feel, I don't know, more comforted that these can be solved pretty quickly at some point.
Yeah, not only that, you don't even have to get to the DNA. You can do it through your public safety cameras. You can do it through your LPR systems as well. Those are proven to be beneficial in those situations. And so even if the DNA doesn't pan out or is still cost prohibitive, we still have those other resources that are paying off big time for us.
Yeah. And Scott, I remember a long time ago, Chief Cook told me this. That's those property crimes like that in the grand scheme of things may seem small compared to another heinous crime. Those affect everyday people that aren't even involved in the criminal element, and those their quality of life issues and their things that can happen to anybody who was doing nothing wrong, minding their own business. And so anything that helps, like Chief said, all these tools, when you can start making gains in that areas to see hopefully long-term reductions. Like, I mean, we see that, you know, I feel like it's definitely made an impact in some of our cases, having the technology we do with the stolen cars and, you know, some of the things that are just happening in other areas that we don't experience, because after a while word gets out and, you know, they know these things are out there. So hopefully, you know, people will be less apt to commit those kind of crimes here and help reduce that number a little bit. And any gain in there, anything helping that is a big push forward, like you said, for citizenry.
I was going to ask, for those committing the crimes themselves, do they, I mean, are they in the right state of mind to where they're even thinking about, hey, what if I get caught? Because now it's a lot easier to get caught with technology.
You know, I think you see drug use tied to a lot of those, so I don't know if I'd say they're in their right mind. There's typically some type of, could be an addiction, could be a mental illness. I think more times you see that it's attributed to drug use, though, more than anything, and there may be some coexisting factors involving mental illness. It's important to point out, too, that a lot of times, and I have to go back to, I can't even think how long it's been. We had just gotten to the new building, I know, in Northwoods, and then we had another instance where we were getting a rash of burglaries up around the square, and you'd be surprised that the number of burglaries we were experiencing, once we made one arrest, they shut down. So a lot of times it's not a group of people. It could be an individual just walking through these neighborhoods, knowing the right times, and it gave us it was a headache for a long time trying to get those solved. And finally we got breaks in both those cases, but I can't tell you how many burglaries were connected to each of those individuals. Several.
Indian Hills, I think, might have been another one, maybe related in that one.
Yeah. One of the questions we were asked, it goes back to the new police precinct, and it was talking about how the city, I guess, gave the pre-approval for putting together site plans for the building, but they're asking about, it says, is it 21,000 square feet in size, and if so, what all will be within that precinct of the new police department?
Yeah, so I think what we're saying is it's going to be around the 20,000. So give or take, it may be a little bit larger, a little bit smaller, based on that. But the big thing we have to do is we just have to get it to where staff, first of all, where the community can go to the west side of town versus having to drive through the town to get to, especially in heavy traffic times, that can be a pain. And but I think realistically what we're probably looking at is some type of community room, some type of training room, some type of property room where officers can drive to that location to check in property and evidence versus having to come to the main police department. Of course, you'd be looking at like roll call space. you'd probably be looking at some backup systems to our current facilities. If we need some backup systems in a protected environment, we can put those there. Training space, probably some office space for CID. So it's a lot of your basic. I say a lot of the basic functions of a building would be located there. So I don't know that it would be anything extravagant as far as adding real-time crime center out there. They can continue to operate where they're at, so I don't see moving any of those functions out to that location.
Another question we had a little while ago, it says, I live on the south side of Murfreesboro and honestly have not noticed any problems with crime other than in our neighborhood, we have someone who drives in and parks on one of the dead-end streets where they're still building homes at night, and then we'll often find used condoms on the ground, at least 3 so far, and we're concerned about our children who play outside. I mean, that does sound like I could see where they'd be concerned about that, but what can you do about that?
Email me with the location and the times that you think it's happening, and we can send somebody out during those time periods and see if we can get them out there.
I mean, I don't know how far citizens can go, but you talk about, like Ring doorbell cameras, things like that. Any footage that people have of vehicles, entering, parking in their neighborhood, things like that, will that go to help solve a crime, or could they point a camera at the location where they think they keep parking?
Yeah, so I don't know that a crime's being. I'd like to know more details about what's going on, but if we find out that something's going on and we have to do an investigation, of course, that footage would be helpful. But I think preliminary, just sending somebody out there and hopefully having an officer, with a description of the vehicle, hopefully have an officer contact that vehicle and just seeing if they can establish a reason to go up and talk to them. I don't know how they're parking, or if they're parking illegally or whatever, but it's definitely something that we would be willing to go put eyes on and see if there's something that can lead us to a further investigation, or maybe just a conversation. Hey, you need to get out of here.
Yeah.
Even if it's not a crime, somebody's just making bad decisions. Just a conversation sometimes can eliminate that issue.
And at that point, we would know who the person was, and we'd have an identity should something happen further down the line.
I've read more and more articles in recent months about HOAs having the license plate readers as people enter neighborhoods. I don't know if that's happening in Tennessee, if any HOAs have it.
Absolutely.
But if so, can they choose to have a license plate reader at the front of, whenever somebody drives in, and does the HOA pay for that? How does that work?
Yeah, HOA pays for it. It's their system. They own it. There's probably some commercial databases. Yeah. But it's definitely something that I want to say the HOAs had them before we did.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
It was that one out in it was somewhere out in Lascat. It was one of the very first ones I heard about. It was way before we had it.
I think some private businesses and HOAs had them before we did.
So are the private businesses, are they looking at the data coming off that license plate reader, or does that go straight to the police department?
Well, if you have an agreement with the local police department, we can access their information. They can't access ours. Yeah, it's definitely something that they can share what they're collecting with us, and it happens. We do that, and it's helpful.
I could imagine.
And the business, the biggest business that does that we see the most are your towing and recovery companies. They run those a lot on the vehicles to often look for whether it be stolen or overdue vehicles or things like that, and that information a lot of times they are selling that back, like you said, companies like Carfax, insurance companies, things like that they're the ones that are maintaining a lot of that. But that's not stuff that we're running. That's totally separate information.
Man, it's got to all just work together to help solve crimes. I mean, technology really has come a long way.
Yeah.
Understatement.
But there again, it's one of those things where it's important to know that if we do partner with a business or another entity, I'm talking about a private, not governmental, that we don't nobody can access our system to look at information. It's totally where we view the information. It's provided to us.
So if you're in an HOA, be careful what you ask for, because that's a private system in that case, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's in the agreement, in the HO agreement, the fine print somewhere probably. So,
Yeah. Well, interesting.
And if they have one, they can probably go find their HOA rep and just ask questions if they've got specific questions about where that information's going and things like that.
Yeah, and I think you're starting to see it more in apartment complexes, which is huge, because I know, especially in 2016, 2017, 2018, we were having the issues with a lot of the crimes around apartment complexes. So investing in that technology as a private complex and sharing that information helps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
With us this morning from the Murfreesboro Police Department, we have Police Chief Michael Bowen and Captain Clayton Williams, and it's already 9 o'clock. We're out of time.
Wow.
That went fast.
But it did go fast. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Absolutely.
All right.